Morning, Viv. What I want to do today is something I've never looked at before, and I just thought that it's worthwhile to really go into it a little bit. So the Torah tells us there's so many stories that happen, and the narratives of Yaakov are just there's so many of them, more than anybody else. We've got all that we have a lot of stories about Abraham, but they're very profound and very meaningful. Each one of them has got enormous depth to them. But when it comes to Yaakov, we find a lot more happening. He travels from there to there, and he makes sukkot, and he does that. But Yaakov, really, in doing all the things that he's doing, is really setting up the foundations of Am Yisrael, not just the foundations of monotheism, foundations of Am Yisrael. So therefore, it's a little bit different. So after what happened with Dinah, for example, Hashem comes to Yaakov and he says to him, "Okay, go to Beit El and go live in Beit El, and there you got to make a mizbeach." That was because that was the place where you had a deep connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, he says to all the people in his house, and this is fascinating. He says to them, "Vayomer Yaakov el Beito ve'el kol asher imo hestiru et Elohei hanechar asher betochem." Get rid of all the avodah zarah that's around you. Why would you have had avodah zarah? So they would have had avodah zarah because they got them from Shechem, and it's just strange because. What Yaakov is saying to them is that we have to be completely pure. We're about to go and reconnect with Beit El, v'nakuma v'naleh Beit El. We're going to go to Beit El, and there we're going to make a mizbeach, and everything's going to refocus us on what our journey needs to be and where we're going. So the people were very happy. They gave Yaakov everything. And what happens there? Vayitman otam Yaakov tachat ha'elah asher im Shechem, and he buries them there underneath the tree, and everything's okay. And everybody's terrified of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so nobody chases Yaakov. Yaakov carries on, eventually gets to Beit El, he builds the altar there, the Mizbeach there, everything he needs to do, and then the Torah in the middle of everything just throws in a pasuk. Atamat Devorah menekes Rivka vatikaber mitachat leBeit El tachas ha'alon vayikra shmo alon uchus. The Torah says that Devorah, who we've never met before, we have no idea who she is, but she is known as the Meineket Rivka. She's a Meineket, generally translated as a wet nurse. So she's like her helper, she's her wet nurse, she's somehow this Devorah. Whoever she is, she dies. And she's buried Tachat Alon under an oak tree below Beit El, in some type of valley there, by Yikrashmo Alon B'chut, and that place is called Alon B'chut. So the question is, well, who is this? What is this, and what is this all about? What is this Devorah? So Rashi says, "Ma inyan Devorah b'Beis Yaakov." What's Devorah got to do with anything? Amra Rivka leYaakov. Rivka said to Yaakov, "V'shalachti lakachticha misham." She said to Yaakov, "I will at some point in time send for you to tell you to come back. So because I'm going to send for you, tell you to come back, who's she going to send? She can only send the most trusted person. Who's that? Devorah. Shalcha Devorah. She sends Devorah, the Padan Aram, Latzeis Misham. She sends Devorah to Padan Aram to go tell Yaakov to leave. Yaakov's already left. But Devorah is not a young woman. She dies. And that's Rashi says that I learned Moshe Hadarshan Lamda. So Moshe Darshan, one of the great Darshanim, learned that out. That's Devorah. Devorah is this woman that was helping Rivka and to go and call back Yaakov. The Torah said that she was buried at the bottom, and the Agada says the following: what's this all about? Why is the Torah telling us about about Devorah? Now, the Torah doesn't speak about anybody else's Meineket who passed away. The Torah speaks about Devorah, the Meineket of Rivka, and it's not like we'd learned about her before. She didn't feature at all. It didn't say that she's the one who brought the boys up or anything like that. The nurse, like the maid, right? It doesn't say anything about that. So what is it all about that it uses this story of Rivka of Devorah? So it says Rashi v'Agada. That it's coming to teach us not only about the sadness of Devorah, but about another Evel, about another sadness, about another mourning. Shehu gadloy al imoshem mesa, because the Torah is coming to tell us about Rivka who passed away. So the place is called Alon Bechut. And Va'alon Beloshen Yevani Acher. And the word Alon in the language of Yevani is Greek, is Acher, means someone else. So Alon Bechut means we're crying for someone else, says Rashi. Why? Because the Torah wants to show that they didn't say, that the Torah doesn't reveal on an open way the death of Rivka. Now listen to this. Why not? In order what? So that the briot, the human beings, mankind, will not curse her womb. That Esav came from it. And therefore, the Torah itself doesn't say it outright, and which is fascinating to think about it. That we have this incredible woman. We speak about Rivka, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Rivka is the mother of Esav, but she's the mother of Yaakov Avinu, the one that we all come from. She's really unbelievable. But Chazal understood, Hashem understood, the Torah understood, human beings understand that there is a leaning that we find more than to find the good. We often look to find the bad. And if we often look to find the bad rather than to find the good, then even in the death of the great tzaddiket, Rivka, who Mamish saved the world by the fact that she did this deceitful thing in bringing Yaakov into the space, even in her death, there are those who say, oh, she's cursed because she's the one who brought forth Esav, as bad as he is. And we have to understand that means how bad Esav really was. If the whole world that the Torah does what it does in order that the whole world doesn't know the death date and space of Rivka, in order that they won't curse her, it must mean that the impact of Esav in the world, negative impact, is so enormous that that's what it could do, is that they would curse Rivka. We know that Esav is Edom. We know that Edom is the scourge of the focus of materialism and everything else that is in the world today, as it always has been since the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash 2,000 years ago. Right? That is what people would be cursing. That a focus on not that which is elevated, which is beautiful, which is something which we can be proud of, but rather on that which is so negative. So that's the way Rashi understands it. If we look at the Das HaKainim, the Das HaKainim always brings something different. That's what I love about it. The Das HaKainim about Tosfot, you can remember, he says, Vatama Devorah, Midrash Kima Shekasuv, Gabe Devorah Neviah. She says, you know why? Why it speaks about Devorah? Because we know a story of Devorah HaNeviah. Devorah is the prophetess. She's the second Devorah. The first Devorah is this Devorah. But this Devorah, what we hear, Yoshevet Tachas Tamar Devorah. It speaks about Devorah, that she sat under the Tamar of Devorah. She sat under the Tamar of Devorah, Zehu Alon Bechus Devorah Dahacha. And that Tamar Devorah is not named after her, but says the Das HaKainim Balatoisvas, that Tamar Devorah is named after Devorah, the Mineket of Rivka, which I think is fascinating. Historically, it's interesting. It's something to look into. The Emek Davar, the Netziv, says that he asked the same question. He says, "Why is it that they didn't say specifically that it's about Rivka? Why v'akasuv ela beremes? Why does it hint to it? Ela avala inyan lo nizko b'kasuv ela masha hadin kach." So it comes along the Netziv and he says, because the Torah is teaching us halacha. The Torah is teaching us how to behave. The Torah is not just teaching us nice ideas. He says, and therefore we have to understand, because that with Avram Avinu it says, "Shalach litzpoy Sarah v'livkoisa." Says that he went to go and give a hesped for Sarah, and he went to cry for Sarah. Shekach hadin levachut al shiva krovim, because that's the halacha. Is that when one of the shiva krovim, when the 7 close relatives pass away, so then you go through the process of crying and of hespedim and all those things. V'chein kan b'mos Devorah, so too with Devorah. Shehi kedin adam kasher. Devorah was an unbelievable woman. She was an unbelievable tzaddik. She was a person who obviously had brought up Yaakov and Esav, and therefore the halacha is that when an adam kasher, when an important person passes away, so then you also have an obligation. Lifkos alav b'farav, you have to cry when they pass away, and therefore it speaks about the fact that Alon Bachut, that they cried with it. Rivka was somewhere else. She didn't pass away in front of Yaakov. There's no chiyuv of him. So I'm sure he cried because his mother, he loved her. But there's no chiyuv to cry for. Yaakov had to cry, but not everybody had to cry because she wasn't present in front of everybody. And so therefore, when it comes to Rivka, there's no mentioning of the crying. And it's so sad when we really think about it. We read about the death of Sarah. We read about the death of Rachel. We read about the death of Leah, but we don't read about the death of Rivka in a profound way. And so that it makes it so sad, and perhaps that in itself is worth crying about. Rivka is this woman who stands at the crossroads of the future of the Jewish people. Because of her, we are who we are, because she was the one who recognized that there was a need to move the brocha from Esav into Yaakov. But nonetheless, we don't read about her, we don't know about her. And so therefore, perhaps it is in our imperative on us to try and find what it is that we can learn from Rivka. And perhaps the most important lessons that we can learn from Rivka is that sometimes we do things that are of such huge import, but they have import for that specific time. And then nonetheless, that even though that will always have a consistent impact on the world in which we live, it's forgotten in a way. Our job is to do what the Torah does. And the Torah constantly here in this case, refers to her in a remez, in a hint of a way, to say, don't forget Rivka. Cry for her, think about her, even though she's buried under, she's buried in a place we know. Ultimately, she's buried in the Meirat Machpelah, but she's buried also together with everybody, because part of her world was the fact that she was the mother that gave us everything that we are as Am Yisrael, because she gave us the Yaakov Avinu, who was no longer the Yoshev Ohalim, the one who sits in the tent, but rather Yaakov Avinu is able to handle his wit with great wits about him. He's able to handle the Lavan and the Sar of Esav, the angel of Esav, and everything else that comes in order for us to be able to weather the storms that we face on an everyday basis here in Galus and wherever else we may be. Let's stop there and have a beautiful day, everybody. Please, God will finish off this parsha.